It is the year 1000, and the sun is setting behind the domes of the greatest city in the world, not Rome. Rome is a field of ruins with sheep in the forum, not Baghdad, though Baghdad would argue. This is Constantinople, the city of Constantine, the new Rome, the city its own people call simply the city. 500,000 souls behind the strongest walls ever raised, on a triangle of land between two seas, crowned with golden domes and lit, as the dark comes down, by 10,000 oil lamps flickering awake like a field of fallen stars. This is a story about one night in that city. No siege tonight, no palace conspiracy, just Constantinople itself after dark, the wooden gongs that call the hours, the watchmen on the sea walls, the great chain across the harbour, the monks who never stop singing, and 500,000 people asleep in the safest city on earth. If stories like this help you drift off, a quiet click on subscribe helps me make more of them, and that's the last thing I'll ask of you tonight. Now pull your cloak around you and come up onto the walls while there is still light. Listen. From a monastery courtyard below comes the sound this night will be built on. Not a bell, the city in this age barely uses bells. It is the semantron, a long plank of seasoned wood, held on the shoulder of a monk who walks the courtyard, striking it with a wooden mallet, a bright, dry, galloping knock, rising and falling in waves, older than bells and gentler, a sound like a patient woodpecker calling the faithful to evening prayer. Talentan, the Greeks called the rhythm, and all over the city in 100 monasteries, 100 semantra answer one another as the light fails, wood speaking to wood across the rooftops. The day is ending, the gates are closing, the lamps are being lit before 10,000 icons. By the time the semantron calls again at dawn, you will know this city as its own people know it, by lamplight, hour by hour, prayer by prayer. There is no hurry. The city has stood for 700 years. It will keep till morning. Before dark, look at where you are standing, because no city on earth is built on ground like this. Constantinople sits on a blunt triangle of land, aimed east like the prow of a ship. On your right hand as you face the sunrise, the Sea of Marmara, wide and pale, the road to the Mediterranean and everywhere. On your left, a long, deep, sheltered inlet curling inland, the Golden Horn, the finest natural harbour in the world, so calm that ships lie against its quays as quietly as horses in stalls. And dead ahead, past the point where the palace gardens run down to the water, the Bosphorus, the racing blue strait that separates Europe from Asia, narrow enough that on a clear evening you can see the farm smoke of another continent rising across the water. Whoever holds this triangle holds the door between two seas and two worlds. Grain from the Black Sea coast, silk and spice from the east, furs and honey and wax from the rivers of the Rus, marble and wine and oil from the Aegean, all of it must pass this point, and for 7 centuries all of it has paid its respects at these quays. That is the simple, permanent reason the city is rich. The merchants would tell you the rest is decoration. And across the base of the triangle, shutting off the only landward approach, stands the thing every visitor speaks of first, in whatever language they arrived with, the land walls. A triple line of defences, 4 miles long, moat, outer wall, inner wall. The inner rampart, 40 feet of banded stone and brick, studded with 96 towers, built 600 years ago, and never yet taken. Armies of every description have camped in front of them and gone home again, or stayed and become part of the soil. The people of the city walk beneath them the way people walk beneath mountains without looking up, protected by something too large to think about. Inside this armor lives the city, 7 hills, like the old Rome, terraced with houses and churches, cut by porticoed avenues, crowded round with harbors, threaded with aqueducts, striding on arches over the rooftops, and open in its heart onto great paved squares where the bronze emperors of 7 centuries stand on their columns and watch the living go by. 500,000 people, perhaps more, in an age when 10,000 makes a great city in the West. A visitor from the Frankish lands, arriving this year, simply stops walking when he comes through the gate. His escort is used to it and waits. The size is one thing, but it is the order that undoes him. Paved streets, lit porticoes, water flowing in public fountains, bread arriving in the night, a fire brigade, a wall of laws as solid as the wall of stone. The West has warlords in wooden halls. This place has plumbing and a supreme court. The sun is on the water now, and the Marmara has gone to hammered copper. The domes of the city catch the last light one by one, and let it go, and the greatest dome of all, floating over the point of the triangle, like a moon tethered by 4 minaret-less towers of buttress, holds the gold longest. Hagia Sophia. We will stand under it at midnight, but first the city must be closed. Come down from the wall, the gate horns are sounding. A city is a vessel, and at nightfall this one is sealed like a treasure chest deliberately, ceremonially, in the same order it has been sealed for centuries. Around the whole 4-mile circuit of the land walls, the gates are closing. The military gates first, the small posterns used by the wall garrisons, then the public gates, each with its little crowd of last-minute travelers hurrying through with carts and donkeys, while the gatekeepers stand with the patience of men who have seen 10,000 last minutes. And finally, with particular ceremony, the Golden Gate itself, the marble triumphal arch at the wall's southern end, its doors sheathed in gilded bronze, reserved for emperors returning in triumph, and closed each night with the unhurried gravity of a cathedral being locked. The keys, great iron keys the length of your forearm, are carried up through the city by officers of the watch, and lodged where they are lodged every night. The ritual matters more than the iron. A city that locks itself the same way every night for 600 years is telling itself something as it turns the key. We intend to be here in the morning. And then the water gate closes, the strangest and most famous lock in the world. Across the mouth of the Golden Horn, from the tower below the Acropolis Point to the tower on the far Galata shore, runs the chain, a boom of massive iron links, each the size of a man's torso, buoyed on great timber floats, lowered by winch in the morning to let the world's commerce in, and raised at dusk to shut the harbour like a strongbox. You can hear it from the water stairs, the deep groan of the winches, the chain coming taut, the floats knocking together in the swell, and every shipmaster in the harbour hears it too, and feels the same thing you feel when your own door is bolted for the night. Enclosed, excluded from nothing you want, safe. The Horn is now a lake. The Marmara approaches are watched by the fleet. The land is shut behind the triple wall. Somewhere in the palace, an officer reports to an officer who reports to an officer that the city is closed as it was yesterday, as it will be tomorrow. Understand what this buys, because it is the luxury underneath every other luxury tonight. 500,000 people are about to sleep without one thought for their safety. In this age, that is the rarest commodity in the world. Villages from Britain to Persia go to sleep listening. Constantinople goes to sleep like a child in a stone house, and its nurses, as you are about to see, stay up all night. You will hear no clock strike tonight, and almost no bells. The city keeps its hours the old way by the sun, the stars, the water, and the wood, and to sleep well here, you should learn to read the night as it does. Like all the ancient world, Constantinople divides the day into 12 hours and the night into 12 hours, and lets them stretch and shrink with the seasons, long luxurious summer days, long deep winter nights. Tonight, in autumn, Day and night are nearly even-handed, and an hour is close to the hour you know. The instruments are everywhere once you learn to see them. Sundials on the church walls and in the forums, useless now and resting. Water clocks in the great houses and the offices of state. Bronze bowls and floats and drip-fed cylinders. Descendants of machines the Greeks were building 1,000 years before, marking hours for clerks who must relieve one another through the night. The astronomers on the terraces rid the wheeling stars as easily as a page, and the army, on its watches, burns marked candles and turns sand glasses, as armies do. But the sound of time in this city, the thing that actually tells 500,000 people where they stand in the night, is the church's round of prayer. The services of the hours march through the darkness on a fixed and ancient schedule. Vespers at sunset, compline before bed, the midnight office in the deep of the night, matins before dawn, and each is announced not by bells, but by the semantron, that long wooden plank struck in rolling rhythm, each monastery taking up the call. Wood was chosen over bronze centuries ago, the monks will tell you, because Noah called the animals into the ark by beating on a plank, and so every call to prayer is also a small nightly rescue. All aboard, the waters are rising, come in and be safe. So the night has a shape, and the shape is this. Wood knocks at sunset, and the city eats and bars its doors. Wood knocks at full dark, and the city says its last prayers and lies down. Wood knocks at midnight, and only the monks and the watch are awake to hear it. Wood knocks before dawn, and the bakers are already floured to the elbow. Between the knockings, lamplight, patrols and sleep. You will hear each of them tonight, arriving from courtyards nearer and farther, wave answering wave, the gentlest public clock any city ever kept. When the next one sounds, do not count anything. Just note, as the citizens do without thinking, the night is proceeding correctly, and someone is awake at the other end of that sound. The someone awake has a name, an office, and a very long tradition. The city at night belongs to the Eparch, the prefect of the city, the emperor's viceroy for everything inside the walls, and his men are taking the streets now as the last light goes. The Eparch governs the daylight city too. He is judge, market master, chief of police, and regulator of every guild from the goldsmiths to the fish sauce sellers, all through a famous book of regulations his office has kept for a century. But at night his authority becomes visible. Patrols of the watch, with lanterns on poles and cudgels on shoulders, walking fixed rounds through the porticoed avenues, sentries at the forum corners. Inspectors trying the locks of warehouses along the Horn. The taverns close at the second hour of the night, by his standing order, an ordinance as old as it is imperfectly obeyed, because the Eparch's philosophy of public order is simple and has never been improved on. Nothing good happens in a wine shop after the second hour. The watch knows its city the way the Edo gatekeeper knows his lane and the ship's quartermaster knows his deck. They know which merchant's clerk sleeps in which doorway when his master locks him out, which alley floods at the autumn rains, which noble houses quarrel and must be walked past slowly, which baker leaves a loaf on the sill for the widow opposite and pretends not to. They carry no trumpets and raise no cries. The sound of the watch is the sound of studded sandals on paving stones, unhurried, regular, passing and returning the same reassurance in Greek that the clappers spoke in Japanese and the lookout's call spoke at sea. Someone is awake, sleep on. And below the watch, in the same darkness, works the city's other nocturnal army, the one every great city hides, the cleaners and the carters, hauling the day's refuse to the barges, the watermen checking the cisterns, the lamplighters of the porticoes topping up oil, the harbour guards pacing the quays under the masts. The city cleans and trims and guards itself at night, the way the body heals in sleep automatically, invisibly, and better than anyone awake would manage it. Follow the watch now, down the great avenue, because their round will take us where every road in this city leads, to the Mese, the middle street, the marble spine of Constantinople. Every city has a main street. Very few have ever had one like this. The Mese, simply. The middle runs from the great square before the palace gates westward through the whole city, branching at the capital to reach the different land gates. A processional avenue paved in flagstone, wide enough for an emperor's triumph, and lined for mile after mile with something the West will not see again for 800 years. Covered colonnades, twin porticoes, marble columns carrying tiled roofs, shading the shopfronts by day, sheltering the walkers by night. You can cross half of Constantinople in the rain and never wet your hood. By day, the Mese is a river of humanity, silk merchants and notaries, porters and pilgrims, senators' litters and farmers' donkeys. Now, in the first hour of the night, it has emptied to a marble corridor of lamplight and echo. Oil lamps burn at intervals under the porticoes. The shopkeepers are obliged to keep them, and the watch checks, so the avenue at night is a chain of warm pools strung on the dark, and walking it is walking from island of light to island of light, your own footsteps coming back to you off the colonnades, doubled and softened, as though someone patient were walking always a little behind you. The shops behind their shutters announce themselves to the nose as you pass, trade by trade. Here the perfumer's quarter, by law and ancient custom, clustered near the palace, so that the imperial forecourt smells of frankincense and balsam on the night air. Here the candle makers, all beeswax and honey sweetness. The goldsmith's row, smelling of charcoal and polish behind the stoutest shutters on the avenue, watched by its own hired guards who nod to the Eparch's men, colleagues in the fraternity of the awake. Farther along, the smell of new bread already beginning faint and premature from a bakery lane where someone's fire is being woken early. At intervals, the avenue opens into the great forums, like beads on a string, and crossing them at night is one of the strange privileges of the sleepless. The Forum of Constantine, a perfect oval of marble, ringed by porticoes, empty as a drained pool, with the founder's column rising 100 feet at its center, porphyry drums bound in bronze wreaths, and on the summit, black against the stars, the man himself, Constantine in gilded bronze with the rayed crown of the sun, watching his city sleep as he has watched it for 7 centuries. The watchmen passing beneath do not look up, but a visitor always does and always stops, and the sentry by the column, who has leaned there through 1,000 nights, watches the visitor look and remembers doing it himself, once, before the column became furniture and the bronze man became a colleague. Statues everywhere in this city, that is the other thing the night reveals. The whole population of an older world, standing in the squares and on the architraves, emperors and gods, horses and serpents, brought from every temple of the drowned pagan centuries to decorate the Christian capital. By day, nobody sees them. By night, lamplit from below, they lean out of the dark with alarming vividness, and 10 centuries of Constantinopolitan children have been told, inside a mosquito-netted bed or out of it, that the statues walk at night. The tale is not believed. The children's grandmothers tell it anyway, on the sound pedagogical principle that a city this old should feel slightly enchanted after dark, because it is. The avenue runs on, pool to pool of lamplight, toward the heart of everything. Ahead, past the last forum, the porticos open out, the sky enlarges, and there is the dome. There is a building at the point of the city that visitors, for 700 years, have refused to describe in ordinary sentences, and at night, from the darkness of the square, you will see why. Hagia Sophia, the Church of the Holy Wisdom, is the largest enclosed space human beings have ever built, and it does not look built. The dome, 180 feet above the pavement, 100 feet across, seems from below to have no business staying up. The historian who watched it rise wrote that it appeared to hang from heaven on a golden chain, and after 4.5 centuries, no one has produced a better engineering report. By day, its 40 windows ring the dome's base with light, so the crown of the church floats on a halo. By night, and this is the sight the night walker gets, the day tourist never, the halo reverses, the lamplight inside comes out. Go up the marble steps past the sleepy verger, through doors sheathed in bronze, and stand in the narthex until your eyes adjust. Then step inside. The church at night is a lake of dark air with a floor of lamplight. Hundreds of oil lamps burn through the dark hours, silver polycandela, discs pierced for glass cups of oil, hanging on chains from the galleries and the dome itself, lowered on pulleys for filling, raised again glowing, whole constellations of warm points, swaying almost imperceptibly in the air currents, like ship's lanterns in the gentlest imaginable sea. Their light does not reach the dome, it reaches the gold. 4 acres of gold mosaic sheathe the vaults of this church, and by lamplight the gold does what its makers intended 1,000 lamps ago. It gathers every flame, multiplies it, and gives it back as a general soft glowing dusk, sourceless and bodiless, as if the air itself were faintly incandescent. Marble columns, porphyry, verd antique, honey and smoke-colored stone from every quarry of the old world rise into shadow. The silence has the specific gravity of very large enclosed spaces at night, not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness, a pressure on the ear, pierced only by a lamp chain ticking somewhere as it cools, and the small business-like footsteps of the night sacristan going his rounds with a taper, feeding wicks, a man alone in the largest room on earth and entirely at home there. He is the building's night watch, and his round takes half the night. Hundreds of lamps, each visited, each trimmed. Ask him, whisper it, whether the room frightens him at night, and he gives the answer his predecessors have given for centuries. At first, yes, then never again. The building at night, he will say, is like a great ship at anchor, very large, very calm, riding on the dark with all its lamps lit, going nowhere, keeping watch. Stand a while under the floating gold. 500,000 people are asleep within a mile of you, and this room is burning quietly all night at the center of them, like a banked hearth, the pilot light of a civilization. Then out, past the verger, who has seen 1,000 night visitors leave with the same expression and enjoys it every time, into the square, where the fountain runs to itself and the bronze statues listen. The night is deepening. Down the hill, past the silent Hippodrome, the palace quarter glows behind its walls, and beyond it, on the point, a fire burns high up in the dark, steady, tended, deliberate. That is the Pharos. That is where the empire keeps its eyes open. Come at the tip of the palace grounds, where the 3 waters meet, stands a tower with a fire on top. The Pharos, the lighthouse of the Bosphorus, approaches, guiding shipping as lighthouses have since Alexandria. But this lighthouse holds a second office, and it is one of the marvels of the age. It is the last station of a telegraph made of flame. Across the Sea of Marmara, on a mountain summit, another fire watches this one. Beyond it, on a peak beyond that, and so on. Fire answering fire, station by station, across the whole width of Asia Minor. A chain of 9 beacons running 500 miles from the palace point to the mountain fortress above the Cilician gates, on the frontier where the empire faces the caliphate. When the frontier has news a raid, an army moving, the far beacon is lit. The next sees it and lights, and the message runs the length of Anatolia at the speed of sight. What a courier would carry in weeks, the mountains announce in an hour. The palace, they say, refined it further in the last century, with paired clocks at either end, so that the hour at which the fire appeared told which of 12 prepared messages was meant. Fire not merely shouting across the dark, but speaking to night. The mountain across the water is dark, and the darkness is the message. Nothing moves on the frontier. The passes are quiet. The empire's long border sleeps. The watcher on the pharaoh's platform, an old soldier with a brazier of his own and a boy to fetch his supper, confirms the dark horizon once more and settles back against the parapet. His whole duty is a fire that never comes. He has stood this post for 11 years and lit the great signal exactly twice, both times drills ordered by an emperor who wished to see the mountains talk. He describes those 2 nights, if asked, the way other men describe the birth of children. From this platform, the night city lies below you complete. The black glass of the horn behind its chain, ship lanterns doubled in the water, the domes lit faintly from within like sleeping lamps, the long lit thread of the Mese, the dark mass of the Hippodrome, and around it all, the walls with the watchfires of the garrison spaced along 4 miles of rampart like a necklace laid on the dark. Beyond the sea, the mountains of Asia and the enormous star-thick autumn sky. An empire, the old soldier says, not originally, it is the proverb of his trade, is a fire relay. Every safe night in the capital is lit from a cold beacon on a far mountain. He tends the lamp, watches the dark that means peace, and lets 500,000 people sleep on the strength of an unlit fire 500 miles away. It is nearly the middle of the night. Below, faint, from the direction of the old Acropolis, comes the woodpecker gallop of a semantron, the midnight office. Time to visit the men who are always awake. In a city of monasteries, there are dozens within the walls, hundreds counting the suburbs. One house holds the strangest and most beautiful office of all, and it gives this whole night its secret motto. They are the akoi, the Sleepless Ones. Their rule, founded 5 centuries ago beside the Bosphorus, is simplicity itself, and staggering. The praise of God in their church shall never stop, not for storms, not for sieges, not for sleep. The community divides into choirs, and the choirs keep watches, as sailors do, chanting in relays, hour after hour, handing the service one to another like a lamp passed from hand to hand, around the clock, around the year, around the centuries. The psalms in their church have not stopped. The tradition holds in living memory or several memories before that. Day and night have no liturgical difference there. The lamp does not go out. The song does not end. Stand tonight in the dark street outside such a vigil and listen. Through the shutters comes the sound, not loud, not performed, a low river of male voices moving through the psalter at the pace of deep water. One choir's voices thinning as the relieved monks bow out to sleep, the next choir's strengthening as they take it up. The seam invisible, the river unbroken. Inside, by a handful of lamps, hooded figures stand in the stalls where other hooded figures stood at this hour 100 years ago, singing words a king of Israel sang 3,000 years ago, to keep a promise that no hour of the world's time shall pass unaccompanied. The city sleeps better for them and knows it. Ordinary citizens, lying in the dark hearing the watch's sandals pass, like to remember that somewhere across the rooftops the song is going on, that the night is not an interruption of the world but a watch within it, fully manned. It is the Edo watchman's clappers and the sailors' all's well raised to the power of eternity. Someone is awake, someone is always awake. You may put down the burden of watching because it is carried. The monks themselves, asked why, answer with the practicality of all professional keepers of the night. The sun does not set on God's mercy, so why should the singing of it? Then they yawn, they are men, and it is the middle watch bow to their relief and shuffle off to hard beds and untroubled sleep, while behind them the river of sound flows on. Carry that sound with you as we walk down toward the water. It will still be flowing when the bakers light their ovens. It will still be flowing when you wake tomorrow. It is flowing, the tradition insists, still, down the stepped lanes to the water now, where the other half of the city's wealth lies sleeping the ships. The golden horn at night is a forest of bare masts, gently ticking. Merchantmen from every water the empire touches lie rail to rail along the quays, round-bellied grain carriers from the Black Sea, Aegean wine ships smelling of pitch and their cargo, slim galleys of the imperial fleet at their own guarded moorings, fishing craft in rafted rows, and here and there the high-prowed riverboats of the Rus come down from Kiev by river and portage and sea with furs and honey and amber and enormous quiet crewmen who fascinate the dockside children. The chain seals them all in as one flock. The harbour guard walks the quays. Ship's watchmen doze against steering oars under little awnings. A mooring line creaks. The tide breathes. Every arriving cargo in that forest of masts has already been counted, and that is the other thing to know about this city's waterfront. It is the most administered shore in the world. Customs officers of the Imperial Service board every merchantman. The Eparch's notaries record. The guilds receive. Silk above a certain grade may not leave the empire. At all export of the Great Purple is treason, plain and simple. For purple is the emperor's color, the way thunder is the skies. The merchants grumble at the paperwork on 3 continents, in a dozen languages, and keep coming grumbling and coming back being, then as now, the twin signs of a port worth trading in. Along the shore behind the quays stand the warehouses and the granaries, the city's larder. Grain enough for a long siege sleeps in bonded stores, oil in sunken jars, saltfish in ranked barrels, the wine of 3 seas. The rats of the Constantinople waterfront are an empire of their own and are opposed, as everywhere and always, by the Free Company of harbour cats, currently on duty along the warehouse roofs, moon-eyed and salaried in fish heads. Out on the black water, one boat moves a ferry skiff, licensed and lanterned, sculling a late passenger across the Horn, oar creaking in its toll, lantern light dragging gold through the water. The sound carries to both shores. Nobody wakes. It is the right sound, small, slow, licensed, alone. The chain tower sentries watch it idly and go back to watching the seam where black water meets black sky, which is their actual job, and which contains, as it has all night, as it will till dawn, nothing. Herons stand along the mudflats where the Horn shallows, grey and patient, fishing the night tide exactly as their colleagues do this same hour under the bridges of Edo and in the reeds below a frigate's anchorage on the far side of the world. The night shift of herons is universal. It is one of the reliable comforts of history. Climb back from the water by the lanes below the Hippodrome and pass along the wall of the strangest neighborhood in the city, the great palace, not a building, but a walled country of buildings, terraced down the point between the sea and the great church, where the emperors of the Romans have lived for 7 centuries. Inside that wall, pavilions and audience halls, chapels and barracks, gardens and cisterns descend to the water in lamplit tiers. Somewhere in there tonight sleeps the master of it all, Basil, second of that name, the soldier emperor, a man of camp habits who has spent half his reign in the saddle on distant frontiers and is said to sleep even here as plainly as a captain. Hard bed, early hours, dispatches at dawn. The gilded ceremonial that awes ambassadors, the throne that rises on hidden machinery, the golden lions beside it that roll their eyes and roar by cunning clockwork, the golden birds that sing on golden trees, all of it sleeps too, under dust sheets of darkness, machines and marvels alike, waiting for the next audience day. An empire keeps its theatre the way it keeps its beacons, dark and ready. What does not sleep in the palace is the apparatus. Guards at the bronze gate, big fair-haired northerners of the Varangian company leaning on long axes, talking quietly in Norsemen who walked and rode 2,000 miles to stand in this doorway, and whose word, once given, is famously beyond purchase. clerks of the night offices, because an empire of this size is always doing business in some time zone of itself. A dispatch from Italy deciphered by lamplight, a frontier report annotated for the morning ministers, the water clock dripping in the corner of the chancery like a patient supervisor, grooms in the stables, bakers in the palace kitchens, already at the emperor's tomorrow bread. And along the seafront, the sentries of the harbour stare, watching the black marmara glitter. The palace at night, say the servants who know it best, is like a great banked fire, no flame showing, everything hot underneath, ready to blaze into ceremony or war within the hour. The city sleeps around it trustingly, the way a household sleeps around the hearth. And in the little palace harbour below, under the pharos light, the imperial barge rides at its mooring with its gilded prow, and beside it, unremarked, the fast dispatch galleys, crews sleeping aboard, that could carry the emperor's word to any coast of the sea. Fire on the mountains, ink in the chancery, hulls at the stair, the empire's nervous system idling at 3 beats a minute, dreaming imperial dreams. Leave the monuments now and come into the ordinary lanes on the slopes above the Horn, where the actual 500,000 sleep, because the true architecture of any city at night is its bedrooms. Most of Constantinople lives in buildings the old Romans would recognize, apartment houses, 2 and 3 and 4 stories, brick and timber over stone ground floors, built around courtyards or straight onto the lane, with shops below and homes above, and the roofline a conversation of tiles all the way down to the water. Families of the middling sort have 2 or 3 rooms, the poor have 1, and the courtyard. The rich have houses turned inward around gardens, with the blank street wall that Mediterranean privacy has always preferred. Rents are argued about at every level, with a fluency that would carry across 1,000 years without translation. Come up the stair of one such house, the landlady knows the watch knows us into the single lamplit room of a decent family, a rope maker at the harbour, his wife who finishes silk tassels for a workshop on the Mese, the grandmother, 4 children. The room at night, like rooms of the modest everywhere, converts, bedding unrolled from chests, the low table pushed to the wall, the brazier charcoal banked under ash, exactly as in Ido, exactly as in the frigate's galley, fire being fire everywhere, standing safely on its tile in the corner. The floor is warm where the brazier stood at supper. The children sleep in a puppy pile under one great blanket, arguing in their sleep about the blanket. And in the corner, the thing that makes this room Constantinopolitan, the icons and their lamp. A shelf in the east corner, the Mother of God, a warrior saint, a paper-thin bronze cross, and before them a small glass lamp of oil, floating its bead of flame, kept burning all night, every night, refilled last thing by the grandmother as her mother did, and hers. It is the humblest station of the same fire that fills Hagia Sophia, 10,000 icon lamps burning in 10,000 dark rooms across the city, a private constellation, each house holds one small watchlight. Children here fall asleep looking at it, grown far away in whatever land life posts them to. It is the thing their memory lights first when someone says, home. The night sounds of the room settle into their order, the children's breathing, the grandmother's slower, the tick of the cooling brazier, a mouse conducting inventory, opposed in due course by the house cat, the neighbour through the wall turning, far off the watch sandals passing, farther off wood knocking softly somewhere, a monastery marking an hour of the night office, and under everything, this being Constantinople, the sea never loud, never absent, the breathing of the 2 waters that hold the city like a jewel in a setting. The rope-maker's wife, last awake as mothers usually are, listens to the inventory complete itself, checks the lamp's small flame once, and lets go of the day. Rewind an hour or 2, Briefly, because the city you have just watched fall asleep put itself to bed by a ritual as fixed as the gate closing, and it deserves its chapter. The evening of Constantinople, like the evening of Edo, runs through hot water. The great days of the imperial thermae are past. The vast pleasure baths of antiquity are too costly to fire now, and some stand as shells, but the neighborhood bath is alive and universal, a domed, marble-lined, thoroughly Roman institution where the city ends its working day in steam. Men at their hours, women at theirs, the porter and the notary on adjacent slabs, gossip, argument, marriage brokering, and the settling of small disputes in an atmosphere that makes grudges hard to maintain. The church long ago gave up frowning on the baths and settled for scheduling around them, which is the correct response to any unstoppable Mediterranean pleasure. A citizen goes home from the bath boiled pink, combed and philosophical, half asleep already, which is the point. Supper is early, lamplit and Mediterranean eternal. Bread always, and above all bread with oil and olives, cheese, salt fish or fresh from the Horn, greens, wine cut with water. The wine of the city's taverns is drunk in measured cups under the Eparch's regulations, which fix measures, hours, and the tavern keeper's responsibilities with the thoroughness this city applies to everything. And at the second hour of the night, by that same regulation, the tavern lamps come down off their hooks. Grumbling, glow, and song disperse into the lanes, escorted by yawns. A few incorrigibles will find a cook shop with a loose interpretation of closing. The watch knows which and checks on them at intervals with the weary tolerance of night shepherds everywhere. Then the lamps of the city go out in their long-practiced order. Shop lamps first, house lamps by ones and twos, the tavern rows dark, the portico lamps and the icon lamps, and the guard fires staying until the city reaches its night state, the one you have been walking through. Darkness inhabited by small, faithful lights, each one tended, each one meaning something. This door is watched, this saint is honored, this soul is home. An old proverb of the city says, "You may know a well-run house by two lights, the lamp before the icon and no other." By that measure, tonight, 500,000 doors are well run. The Eparch, if he could see them all at once and from the Pharos platform, you nearly can, would go to bed satisfied, because the walls have kept us company all night. You should hear told calmly, from the safe distance of a strong and peaceful reign, what they have already outlived. The citizens themselves tell these stories on quiet evenings with a particular relish, the way sailors tell storms from a snug harbor. Nothing seasons a safe night like the memory of dangerous ones. 3 centuries ago, the storm came twice from the east. The fleets and armies of the new power of Islam, in the first flood tide of its conquests, laid siege to the city once for 5 years running, again for a terrible 12-month, and the world held its breath, because everyone on both sides understood that this city was the door of Europe. The door held. The triple wall did its patient arithmetic on every assault. The granaries and cisterns you walked past tonight did theirs. And the fleet had a weapon out of legend, the sea fire, the liquid flame, sprayed roaring from bronze siphons in the bows of the galleys. It burned on the surface of the sea itself. Water fed it. Nothing aboard a wooden ship could answer it. The recipe was a state secret, guarded like scripture, guarded so well, in fact, that it guards itself to this day. The exact formula is locked in perhaps 3 heads in the palace quarter, and the citizens like it that way. A dragon in the arsenal, asleep. Before that it was the great siege out of the north and east together, Avar horsemen blackening the land walls, while a Persian army watched from the far shore of the Bosphorus, the city caught between 2 empires like a nut in a cracker. The walls held that time too, the fleet held the strait, and the deliverance was credited by the whole delirious population to the Mother of God herself, whose icon had been carried around the ramparts by the patriarch while the assault raged. The hymn composed in that deliverance, the great standing chant to the Virgin, sung by the whole city on its feet, is sung still, every year, and every citizen walking these lanes tonight has sung it, and knows in their bones the story it carries. The walls are stone, but the city believes its true wall is elsewhere and unbreachable. That is the past the night watch inherits. Understand then what you have actually been watching all night: the sentries on the ramparts, the chain across the Horn, the dark beacon on the mountain, the drilled fire companies, the granaries kept filled in peacetime. None of it is anxiety. It is memory institutionalized into calm. The city was terrified once, and twice, and 7 times, and after each terror it quietly added a habit, a wall, a fire, a hymn, until terror itself was paved over into routine, and the routine into this, the deepest, most defended, most articulate peace a city ever slept in. The watchman on the wall tonight has never seen an enemy. His equipment for the eventuality is a horn he has never blown, a beacon he has never lit, and a hymn he knows by heart. He leans on 600 years of stone, watches the quiet Thracian dark, and waits, without impatience, for a dawn he is entirely sure of. One more remembering, because you passed its long dark wall tonight between the great church and the palace, the Hippodrome, the yew of stone where this city keeps its heart, currently empty as a held breath, 100,000 seats of moonlit silence. On race days, and every citizen in every lane around you has lived 100 of them, this silence is the loudest place in the world. The chariots run 4-horse teams, professional heroes, the blues and the greens whose colors divide the whole city into 2 eternal, passionate, mostly harmless nations. The emperor attends in his box, connected by private stair to the palace. Protocol is performed, and then for a day the most ceremonious society on earth roars itself hoarse as one animal. Fortunes ride on the turning posts. Charioteers' names are scratched by apprentices onto warehouse walls beside the harbor. Grandmothers have opinions about the Green's second driver. The races are the city's shared fever, its licensed madness, its one great communal noise, and the reason its silences, like tonight's, feel so deep. This is a city that knows exactly how loud it can be, and is resting. Down the empty spine of the racecourse, monuments stand in the moonlight where the chariots turn. An Egyptian obelisk, older than Moses on its carved base. The strange bronze column of 3 entwined serpents, cast from the shields of the Persian dead at Plataea 15 centuries ago. And the great bronze horses, 4 of them, golden, mid-stride, breathing the night air above the starting gates. The most beautiful team ever harnessed, waiting out the dark like everything else here between festivals. An old groom of the stables, unable to sleep, walks the sand sometimes at this hour, he has done it for years, and tells no one down the whole moonlit length of the arena, past the silent tiers, under the horses of bronze, hearing he would swear it, and never will aloud, the crowd all around him in the silence. Not ghosts, he insists to himself, but the shape the roar left in the stone, the way a bell keeps a hum after the strike. He rakes a patch of sand smooth with his sandal, for tomorrow, for the principle of the thing, and goes back to bed through the gate only he and the watch know is left unbarred. The city can be loud. Tonight it chooses, as it mostly chooses, the other thing. Past the sleeping Hippodrome, down the last dark stair, the night is waiting to finish itself by the water. The lanes above the harbor are workshop country, as they are in every city we have night walked, and behind these particular shutters sleeps the most regulated craftsmanship on earth. Constantinople does not merely practice its trades, it constitutes them. Every craft is a guild, every guild has its statutes, And the statutes live in the Eparch's famous book, where each trade may set up, what it may buy, to whom it may sell, what its measures and prices and apprenticeships shall be. The merchants of Venice and the Caliph's cities laugh at the paperwork and copy it, decade by decade, because it works. Behind this shutter, silk, the city's glory trade, and the most jealously ordered of all. Raw silk comes in from the east and from the empire's own mulberry provinces. It passes by law. Through separate guilds the spinners may not weave, the weavers may not sell raw. The dyers keep to their quarter down by the water, where the murex vats can offend the harbour instead of the neighbours. And above the whole ladder, untouchable, the imperial workshops inside the palace wall, where the great purple is woven the colour of thunder, and emperors, forbidden to leave the empire, wanted by every king on earth precisely because no money can buy it. Tonight the looms stand dressed and waiting, warps taut in the dark like strung instruments, skeins the colour of flame and sea-deep sleep in locked chests. And the workshop cat, silk workshop cats, are an aristocracy, mousing being no small matter, where a nibbled warp is a season's wages, patrols her domain with taxes paid in cream. Behind that shutter, gold. The argyroprati, the gold and silversmiths whose row you smelled on the Mese, charcoal, wax and polish. Their statutes are the strictest after silk, for they double as the city's bankers, weighing coin, holding deposits, changing money for the pilgrim traffic of three faiths. Their shutters are oak and iron, their watchman is a retired soldier with opinions, their scales sleep in velvet like relics. The nomisma, the gold coin of this city, has held its weight for nearly 7 centuries, the dollar of the medieval world, taken without question from Britain to Ceylon, and it is weighed out morning after morning on those sleeping scales by men whose grandfathers weighed it on the same counters. And behind the third shutter, warm already, breathing already the trade the city actually cannot sleep without, bread. The Bakers' Guild holds the strangest privilege in the Eparch book. Bakers and their animals are exempt from public duties and requisitions, for the bread must never stop. Their ovens are the only fires in the city licensed to wake before the man does. It is deep night now, and the bakers' boys are already up to their elbows in tomorrow. Dough rising in long troughs under cloths like sleeping bodies. The oven's mouth beginning to glow, and the smell, that first warm loaf smell threading into the lane, is the city's true midnight office, worshipped by every returning watchman who detours past the grate on his round, as watchmen have detoured, warming their hands and their patience since bread and cities began. Silk for glory, gold for trust, bread for mourning. The whole political economy of a 1,000-year empire, asleep in 3 shuttered rooms on one dark lane, guarded by a cat, a veteran, and an oven. One more secret before the last watch, and it is the best kept one in the city, because it is directly beneath your sandals. Constantinople, girdled by 2 seas it cannot drink, keeps a 3rd sea underground, and at night, in the silence, those who know how to listen say you can feel it. A faint mineral coolness rising through certain pavements, a hush below the hush. The city's water comes from faraway hill country deep in Thrace, gathered by aqueducts whose arches you saw striding over the rooftops, a stone river walking on legs for mile after mile. And because a city built for siege cannot trust a river that an enemy can cut, the water is banked. Cisterns everywhere under churches, under courtyards, under the very forums you crossed tonight. Small house cisterns by the 1,000, and then the great ones, the covered lakes. The grandest of them lies a stone's throw from Hagia Sophia, a forest of 336 marble columns standing in black water under brick vaults, column capitals looted from a dozen older buildings, an upside-down palace holding enough water for a city's worth of thirst. The workmen who maintain it go down by boat with torches, between the columns, over water so still their ripples return to them from the dark like messengers. Fish live down there, pale and easy, stocked by some practical ancestor to keep the water proven clean, the empire's smallest sentries on watch in the dark beneath the throne of the world. By day, the city drinks from fountains fed by this buried sea and never thinks of it. By night to night, the cisterns simply stand, black and full and patient, the city's deepest form of the habit you have watched all night in every quarter, the storing up of safety in the dark. Grain in the warehouses, fire on the mountains, psalms in the choir, water under the streets. A city sleeps soundly in exact proportion to what it has quietly put by. And by that arithmetic, no city ever earned its sleep like this one. The night is far gone now. Overhead the stars have wheeled, the Marmara has turned its deep pre-dawn black, and along the lanes the icon lamps are burning low in their oil. One watch remains the sweetest one. Let us spend it going home. A single lamp still burns in the guest wing of a monastery near the land walls, and behind it, as behind one lamp in Iddo, as behind one lantern on a frigate, someone far from home is writing a letter. He is a young official of the themes, the provinces, summoned to the capital from Italy for review of his accounts, quill scratching down a page of careful bureaucratic Greek that keeps sliding between paragraphs into homesickness. His letter will travel the roads that make this empire an empire. Out through these walls runs the Via Egnatia, the great paved road west Thessalonica, the Adriatic, and by ship to Italy, the same stones the legions marched east on 1,000 years ago, now carrying mule trains, tax collectors, pilgrims, and mail. East across the water, the military roads fan out through Anatolia to the frontier, station by station under the silent beacons. And along all of them runs the dromos, the imperial post, relays of horses at fixed stations, dispatch riders with sealed satchels, inspectors checking the stables, the whole ancient machinery by which the palace speaks to its provinces and the provinces answer. To ride the post requires a warrant. The warrants are counted. The empire has learned in 700 years exactly how fast news must travel, and paid for exactly that speed and no more. Urgency is for the beacons, paper can trot. Private letters ride wherever room is found, tucked in a merchant's bale, carried by a returning pilgrim, entrusted to the captain of a grain ship with a coin and a blessing. They take weeks, they arrive creased and sea-stained, and they say across this 1,000 years, you will know the words by now, what all such letters say. The vintage is in, your mother's eyes are weaker, but she spins still. The boy you left in short clothes reads Homer now with the deacon. The pear tree you planted gave fruit at last. Come home when the emperor releases you. Come home in one piece. We count the months. The young official seals his page with wax and his father's ring, sets it by his boots for the morning boat, and lies down at last on the narrow guest bed, one more soul added to the sleeping city, one more letter added to the slow worldwide tide of them. Constantinople to Amalfi, Edo to the northern provinces, a frigate at sea to a cottage in Portsmouth. The technology never matters, the words never change. Somebody, everywhere, is always writing home by one lamp, and the roads and the ships and the patient sentries carry it all. The watchman on the seawall, pacing off the last dark hour, could tell you, as his colleagues told us on other nights in other empires, that tonight is only one card from the city's deck. Constantinople keeps a wardrobe of nights, and he has worn them all. Winter nights, when the black wind the citizens call the poiras comes down the Bosphorus from the Russian steppes, and snow, yes snow, southern visitors never believe it, settles on the domes of the holy wisdom and lies in the folds of the bronze emperor's cloaks, and the braziers glow in every room, and the watch stuffs raw wool inside its boots and counts the hours honestly. On such nights the horn can skim with ice at its shallow ends. The seagulls stand one-legged and offended on the chain, and the whole city smells of charcoal and wet wool and sleeps magnificently. Spring nights, when the Judas trees along the walls flower purple-pink in the dark, and the great processions begin, for spring is the season of litanies, the whole city walking behind icons and banners through the lamplit streets from sanctuary to sanctuary, singing as one choir, 10,000 candles moving like a river of stars, the one season when the city at night is more crowded than by day, and the watch has nothing to do but walk along the edges and be moved. Summer nights, when the heat lies on the lanes and the city migrates upward and outward, beds on the flat roofs and in the courtyards, families sleeping under the stars as their ancestors of the tents did, the islands in the Marmara winking with the lamps of villas, the sea gone phosphorescent so the ferry oars stir green fire, and the whole amphitheatre of the city murmuring half asleep in the open air, until the dawn coolness sends everyone in under blankets, and autumn tonight, the season the city privately considers its own, the grain fleet safely in, the granaries full, the campaigning season closing on the frontiers, and the soldiers turning home, the light going gold, the sea going wine dark, the first braziers lit, the whole vast apparatus of walls and fleets and beacons and psalms settling in for the long defended dark of the year with the satisfaction of a landlord bolting his door. An empire, like a household, has a time of year when its work is stacked and its stores are counted, and it permits itself to feel provided for. You have been walking through that feeling all night. It is the season itself, wearing a city, 100 years of such seasons, the watchman would say, stacked one on another quietly. That is what a capital is. Nothing about tonight is special. That is the whole grandeur of it. The wheel will bring every one of these nights round again, and the watch will be on the wall for all of them. 2 doors down from the ropemaker's family, behind an ordinary door, in an ordinary lane, sleeps the neighborhood's other small school for Constantinople, like Edo, would astonish a Western visitor with how many of its children learn letters. The grammarian who keeps it is a deacon with a lame leg and beautiful handwriting. His pupils are the sons and some daughters of shopkeepers and clerks. The fees are modest and sometimes paid in olives. By day the room chants, the alphabet in chorus, then syllables, then the psalms. The Psalter is the city's first reading book, so that every literate soul in this empire learned to read on the same 150 poems, and carries lines of them for life, the way other ages carry songs. The quicker boys go on to Homer with the deacon after hours, pagan Homer in this most Christian of cities, taught without a blush for 1,000 years, because Greek is Greek and glory is instructive. A clerk in the customs house can quote the catalogue of ships. The deacon believes correctly that this is civilization. The children's city is layered invisibly over the adults' one. They know which portico gives the best echo, which forum statue you must touch for luck on examination days, which cistern mouth breathes cool air in August, which baker's grate radiates warmth in January, and the entire complex protocol of the game's hoops down the porticoes, knucklebones on the church steps, mock chariot races run on foot around the Hippodrome's outer wall, blues against greens forever in miniature. Their fathers bet dinners on the real races. The children bet buttons on their own and pay up with the same solemnity. And at bedtime, this city's grandmothers deal from their own ancient deck. Saints' tales, above all for the saints of this calendar, are a complete adventure literature. Soldier saints who face down emperors, desert hermits who converse with lions, the holy fools who play at madness in the market to hide their sanctity, and the city's own particular darlings, Saint Nicholas, who threw the gold through the poor man's window by night, and fills this story slot from the Adriatic to the Rus, the warrior George and his dragon, the guardian herself, the mother of God, who walks the walls. A Constantinopolitan child falls asleep in a city where, as far as he knows, the statues stroll, the saints patrol, the monks sing all night on his behalf, and the sea fire sleeps in the arsenal like a tame dragon. It is, all things considered, the best guarded childhood sleep in the history of the world, and the children, with the infallible instinct of children, sleep like the empire depends on it. The deacon's schoolroom sleeps too, waxed tablets stacked, styluses in their jar, tomorrow's psalm ruled faint on the master slate. On the sill his one luxury, a pot of basil, which every schoolroom and half the windows of this city keep for fragrance, for luck, and because the legend says basil sprang where the true cross was found, so even the windowsills here are footnoted to eternity. The city does not end at the water, it dissolves across it. Stand at the sea-wall one more time in the deep of the night and look outward, because everything you can see is also Constantinople, sleeping in its outer rooms. Across the Golden Horn on its own hillside, Galata, the ferry suburb, the sailors' quarter, home to foreign merchants' compounds, and the tower where the far end of the great chain is wound. Its lamps are few and low, its taverns closed later than the Eparch would like and know it. Its roosters will wake before the city's own. The ferryman's boats nest along its shore like sleeping waterfowl, and the whole slope has the pleasant, disreputable coziness of harbour suburbs. Everywhere the city's boot room, where the sea traffic wipes its feet. Up the Bosphorus, both shores, a chain of fishing villages and monastery headlands, each with its shrine lamp burning toward the water, the current racing black and muscular between them. Dolphins, the strait is full of them, rising and rolling in the starlight where the currents seam. Fishermen here read the water like the beacon men read the mountains. The Bosphorus runs in layers, surface current one way, deep countercurrent the other, and the tunny and mackerel ride these lanes in their seasons, in shoals that have fed this shore since bronze was news. Their boats will be out before matins. And south, out in the dark Marmara, low shapes on the sea, the Prince's Islands pine-covered, monastery-crowned, ringed with quiet coves. Pleasure islands now, in this peaceful reign, dotted with the summer villas of the great, but also, famously, the empire's most beautiful prison. Deposed emperors, overmighty generals, and inconvenient princes have retired or been retired to island monasteries here for centuries, exchanging the palace for a cell with a sea view. There are worse ends for ambition, the citizens observe. The island's vespers bells, the islands being rich, run to actual bells come across the water on the south wind like a moral. The city in its setting, seen whole from the wall at night, capital on its triangle, suburbs on their slopes, islands on the dark sea, beacon answering beacon inland, shrine lamp answering shrine lamp along the shores, one great settled constellation of the guarded and the sleeping, with the black water breathing between. The sentry beside you looks at it the way the fire tower watcher looked at Edo, the way the masthead lookout looked at the empty ocean, proprietor of the visible world, soul waking air for one more hour of everything the lamps imply. Then, from behind you in the city, faint, dry, patient, wood on wood, the semantron for matins. The last act of the night is beginning. There is a class of lamp in this city we have not yet visited, and it burns in the windows of buildings the ancient world never thought to build and the medieval West has not yet imagined. Constantinople keeps institutions of mercy the way it keeps walls, permanently, publicly, and by charter. Here, on the slope below the great church, a xenon, a hospital. Not a hospice where the sick are merely kept, but an ordered house where they are treated wards by ailment, physicians on rotation, salaried surgeons, women's wards with women doctors, teaching by the bedside, records kept. The great ones are endowed by emperors and run by the church. Their charters survive, prescribing everything from the number of night lamps per ward to the bed's bedding and the gruel's recipe. And at this hour, that is what the xenon is. Long, dim wards breathing in rows, night lamps at the prescribed intervals, an orderly dozing upright on his stool, One physician on the night rotation, moving cot to cot with a lamp checking a fever here, a splinted arm there. The world's oldest night shift in the world's oldest hospitals, working through the dark exactly as their successors will in every city that ever learns the idea from them. Further along, the orphanatrophion, the great orphanage of the capital, another imperial charter, with its own school, its own choir famous enough to sing on feast days before the emperor. Hundreds of children asleep in long dormitories at this hour, each one a small shipwreck the city has taken aboard, and scattered through the quarters, the rest of the fleet of mercy. Old age homes, houses for the blind, hostels where any pilgrim or pauper may sleep 3 nights on the church's bread. The poorhouses at the gates, the bread doles administered parish by parish. The Eparch regulates the guilds. The church, with the same bureaucratic thoroughness, regulates compassion. It is written into wills, endowed with vineyards, staffed by career administrators, and audited. None of this is soft, and the citizens do not think of it softly. They think of it the way they think of the walls and the cisterns, infrastructure. A city, they would tell you, they have the walls to prove the argument survives by what it stores against the dark. Grain, water, fire, prayer, and mercy is stored the same way, in buildings with lamps. On any given night, on this night, some thousands of the city's most defenseless are asleep inside that storage, fevered, orphaned, blind, aged, stranded, each one, whatever the day cost them, inside walls, under a lamp, on the ledger of somebody whose salaried duty is the night watch of the helpless. The physician on rotation finishes his round and notes the hour by the ward's water clock. The orphanage dormitories breathe. Down the lane the watch passes, sandals on stone. The city keeps everyone it can reach. That is the whole secret of its sleep and the last of its systems of the night. What remains now is the turning of the wheel itself, the fishermen, the bakers, the dawn. One lamp more. Scholars' lamps burn latest of all lawful lights, in every century, and this one burns high in a house near the palace school, where an old teacher of rhetoric has fallen asleep over his book, which is how books prefer their readers to leave them. Constantinople reads. Not merely the Psalter literacy of the lanes the city holds the palace university, refounded and refounded, where geometry and law and philosophy are lectured under imperial salary. The patriarchal school in the galleries of the great church itself, the private circles where civil servants read Plato after office hours, because the ladder of this empire's bureaucracy is climbed on rhetoric, and every ambitious clerk knows his classics. In an age when a Western king may sign with a mark, this city's tax officials exchange letters spiced with allusions to Thucydides and expect them caught. And because it reads, it copies, and this, though no one tonight thinks of it grandly, is the city's longest night watch of all. In the scriptoria of its monasteries and the workshops of its book trade, the literature of the ancient world, Homer and Plato, the tragedians and the historians, the geographers, the physicians, survives because it is copied here, generation after generation, choir by monks and paid scribes at slanted desks, recopied as the old copies were, corrected against older copies, catalogued in libraries whose catalogues are themselves copied. Nearly everything Greek antiquity will ever be known by, in every later age, passes through this narrow funnel of lamplit desks in this one city, kept alive by men who mostly regard it as steady work. The desks sleep now, pumice and penknives laid straight, inkhorns stoppered, an unfinished Iliad open under a weight at the line where the light gave out the horses of Achilles standing patient in mid-verse till morning. In the library presses around the walls sleep the great volumes, and inside them, pressed like flowers, whole vanished worlds, sea battles, philosophies, comedies whose theatres are wheat fields now, safe, dark, dry, waiting. The rhetoric teacher's lamp gutters by his sleeping head. A prudent student, leaving, pinches it out and closes the Aristotle. Empires bank many fires against the dark, and tonight you have seen them all banked in one city. Grain, water, gold, mercy, prayer, and this, the strangest hoard, the memory of civilization itself, asleep in its presses, guarded by the same walls and the same lamps as the bread. The baker's grate has been promising it all night. Give the city's table its chapter before dawn, recited quietly, the way the watchman recites it to himself on the last cold hour of the round. Bread first, always, the white loaves of the capital, the ring loaves, the hard twice-baked ship's bread of the fleet. This city eats the Mediterranean trinity, grain and oil and wine, at every table from the palace to the porter's bench. Then the sea, which is this city's kitchen garden, the tunny and mackerel of the Bosphorus in their thundering seasonal runs, red mullet for the fortunate, oysters and mussels from the Horn's mouth, and everywhere perfuming whole lanes at noon, grilled fish and the saltfish shops with their barrels. The infamous fish sauce of the ancients, garros, lives on here in full vigor, dosed onto everything by citizens and deplored by foreign visitors in letters home that always somehow mention buying more. Cheese from the Thracian hills and the islands, olives black and green in their crocks, lentils and chickpeas simmered with cumin for the working city's bowl, cabbages and leeks from the market gardens inside the very walls the land walls enclose farmland. By old design, siege insurance you can eat and fruit in its processions. Figs, grapes, quinces baked in honey, the melons of the season, pomegranates split like treasuries. Honey does the work of sweetness, the famous cakes soaked in it, the rice cooked in milk and honey on feast days, and the palate of the rich runs eastward. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, the caravan flavors, spent like small money on great dinners where the service is gold, the dining couches are antique fashion, and the talk is required to be as seasoned as the food. And the streets eat as Ido's streets eat, as harbour streets everywhere eat, hot from the brazier at the corner skewers of grilled meat, fried sprats in a twist of vine leaf, hot chickpea soup in the cold months ladled from the cauldron of a vendor whose pitch has been his family's for 3 generations, wine by the cup at the counters the Eparch licenses and inspects. A workman of Constantinople dines standing up in 4 minutes and argues theology while doing it. Visitors report both halves of that sentence with equal amazement. All of it sleeps now, crocks lidded, cauldrons scoured, the tunny boats still out in the dark strait writing tomorrow's menu. What is awake and growing is the smell from the baker's lane. The first batch is in. The watchman on the wall lifts his nose to it like a compass finding north. Matins soon, loaves soon. The night is measurably, deliciously, almost over. Before the night ends, walk one stretch of the thing that makes all of it possible. The night garrison of the land walls makes a continuous circuit 4 miles out along the inner rampart, 4 miles back along the outer, and a sleepless civilian of good reputation, known to the officers, may walk a tower's length or 2 in their company. There is no better last walk in the world. Up the tower stair, out onto the wall walk, a paved road in the sky, wide enough for 4 men abreast, running away north under the stars in a slow curve of merlons and towers toward the invisible Horn. On your right hand, below the city, rooftops silvered, icon lamps pricking the dark, the great domes riding the skyline like moored ships. On your left, beyond the parapet, the outer wall, the moat, and then nothing. Thrace. Dark farmland breathing autumn mist, a wolf arguing with a sheepdog somewhere far off, the road to Adrianople running pale and empty toward the rest of the earth. 1 parapet's width between the world's largest city and the world's oldest silence. You can stand with a hand on each. The towers come at bowshot intervals, and each is a small keep and a smaller household. Door, guardroom, brazier, lamp, arms racked on the wall. The watch's bread and olives in a basket, a sentry above on the platform, and his relief asleep below on a bench, boots on, exactly like a midshipman in a frigate's berth. The garrison of the walls is its own village. Many of the men were born in the wall quarters, sons and grandsons of the watch. They farm the market gardens inside the ramparts on their off days, marry the bakers' daughters of the gate lanes, and know their tower the way a shepherd knows his hut. Emperors come to the walls on inspection with trumpets. The wall's real life is this: bread, braziers, inherited vigilance, and the long quiet. The passwords change nightly. The rounds are checked with tokens. The officers' lanterns move on their own schedule, testing the sentries, the machinery of alertness, running at peacetime idle, but running always. At each tower, the walkers exchange the night's word with the man above, low-voiced, and get back the oldest reply in the soldier's world, in 10th century Greek, but you know it already: all's well. Stand a moment at mid-circuit, on the high ground where the whole line is visible both ways, towers diminishing into the dark north and the dark south, each with its spark of brazier light, the necklace you saw from the Pharos, now around your own throat. 600 years this line. Grass grows on the outer wall's shoulders, storks nest on the tower crowns in spring. The stones have settled into the ridge like a range of hills, and like hills they are simply believed. 500,000 sleepers below have never once dreamed of them failing. On the strength of that unanimous, unconscious vote of confidence, the whole golden city closes its eyes. Down the stair again, past the guardroom brazier, into the lanes. The circuit goes on without you, as it went on before you, as it will go on, sandals on stone in the sky. All night, all's well. Between the sea wall and the horn's edge, behind its own guarded enclosure, lies the quarter the city sleeps most soundly for never thinking about. The Neorian, the naval yards. Come to the fence. The marine sentry knows the watch officer. You may look, though not linger. Slipways run down to the Blackwater like beached whale roads, and on them, chalked and covered, sleep the dromons, the war galleys of the imperial fleet, long, low, twin-banked, their rams and forecastles sheeted against the weather, masts housed, oars racked ashore in numbered stacks like the wing feathers of some great molted bird. A fleet ashore is a strange, moving sight, power folded up and put away, the sea's whole argument reduced to carpentry and patience. Shipwrights' sheds line the yard, adzes and augers on their pegs, steam boxes cold, ribs of a new hull rising pale in the gloom like the skeleton of the idea of a ship. The smell is tar, oak shavings and rope, the smell you will notice of the frigate's deck 7 centuries early. The trade signs itself the same way in every age, and in the innermost shed under guard that does not change with the watch but doubles, sleeps the dragon, the apparatus of the sea fire, bronze siphons sheeted in canvas, the pump works, the sealed jars of the substance itself, whatever it is, pine resin and naphtha and quicklime and secrets, say the harbour rumours, which are wrong on purpose, fed by the office that keeps the truth. The marines who guard it do not know the recipe. The shipwrights who fit the siphons do not know it. The officers who will spray it roaring over the sea, if the horn ever blows, do not know it. 3 heads in the palace, the saying goes, and never aboard one ship. The city likes its dragon exactly this way, caged, fed, legendary and asleep. The fleet's crews sleep in barracks by the yard, oarsmen and marines, free men and paid, the Empire having learned long ago that free oars row better than chained ones. Their rhythm is the sea season, campaigns and convoys in the sailing months, refit and drill and harbour watches in the closing year. Tonight is deep in the home season. The fleet dreams in dry dock, and the only Roman warship underway in all the dark Marmara is a single patrol galley off the islands, lantern at her stern, walking her beat like everything else in this empire of rounds and reliefs. Seals on the sheds, sentries at the fence, the tide fingering the slipways. The city's sword is in its scabbard, oiled, counted and guarded, one more store laid up against the dark, the sharpest one sleeping sharpest of all. Last of all, before the fishermen and the bakers hand the city back to mourning, take the census no chronicler bothers with, the other Constantinople, the one on 4 legs and 2 wings, which has been awake around you all night, running the city's second economy. The cats first, in their thousands, harbour cats on salary of fish heads, warehouse cats of the granaries, whose work is imperial in every sense, the silk workshop aristocrats, the monastery cats who attend the night offices with perfect regularity and sleep through them in the warm lamp corners, tolerated by abbots for 1,000 years on the grounds that vigilance takes many forms. The dogs next, the shepherd dogs of the wall country farms, the watchdogs of the great houses, baritone and chained, and the free companies of the streets, who sleep in the forums by day and hold their parliaments at night, moving from quarter to quarter on ancient dog business, tolerated, fed at kitchen doors, and counted by the watch as auxiliaries. Nothing crosses a sleeping district unannounced while they hold the franchise. Mules and donkeys stand in their thousands in stables and courtyards, the actual engine of the city's daily life, dreaming whatever is dreamed by those who carry civilization's baggage. The post horses doze in their relay stations along the great roads, one station always with a lamp lit in case the palace speaks. In the palace menagerie for emperors keep beasts as they keep automata. To astonish ambassadors, the lions of the throne room's living counterparts sleep in straw, and a giraffe, gift of an Egyptian embassy and the wonder of a generation, folds its impossible architecture down for the night, while its keeper, who loves it beyond reason, sleeps across the doorway. Overhead and around, the seagulls, who own the domes by deed older than the church, asleep in white ranks along the cornices of Hagia Sophia. The storks, gone south now, whose great stick nests crown the wall towers like rough coronets waiting for spring. Owls in the cypress groves of the monasteries, working the same night shift as the watch and rather better at it. And along the moonlit shallows of the Horn, the herons again, always, everywhere the herons' grey sentinels, spaced with military correctness, fishing the small hours with the patience of saints. And in the black water itself, the dolphins of the Bosphorus roll and breathe up the silver current lanes, stitching Europe to Asia all night long, as they did before the city, before the Greeks, before anyone was here to be comforted by them, the strait's own sleepless order, keeping the oldest watch of all. The city keeps them all, and they keep the city, mousers and watchdogs and carriers and sentinel birds, the whole warm-blooded night shift, working for fish heads and kitchen scraps and the ancient unwritten contract. When the histories are written, none of them will be in it. They were on duty every single night of the 1,000 years. The watchman's mind on the last hour goes where the Edo watchmen's went to the days the city stays up, and Constantinople's are the most golden ever staged. The great feasts of the calendar turn the city into its own theatre. On the eaves, the churches blaze, every polycandelon lowered, filled, lit and raised, so that Hagia Sophia on Easter night is a single vessel of light, the gold vaults incandescent, the crowd holding 10,000 candles, lit one from another until the church is a slow indoor dawn. And the chant on such nights is not the low river of the vigil, but the full antiphonal sea, 2 choirs, the domes answering, and once on the greatest days, the emperor's silver organs adding their weather to it. For this city kept the organ alive when the West forgot it, and plays it not in church but for splendor, in processions and at the palace, bellows blown thunder and sweetness on wheels. Processions are the city's genius, the whole capital in movement, behind icons and crosses, the Mese carpeted with bay leaves and rosemary, silk hangings out of every window, the guilds in ranked order with their banners, the silk men, the goldsmiths, the notaries, even the bakers, released for once from their ovens, the factions of the Hippodrome chanting acclamations in formal counterpoint, wishing the emperor many years in melodies as old as the walls. An acclamation is a strange and wonderful thing to hear. A crowd of thousands speaking metrical praise in unison, tuned, rehearsed, half song and half law, the city talking to its sovereign in the voice of a single enormous courteous giant. And when the feast is the city's own, the anniversary of its founding, or deliverance remembered, the celebration reaches the water, lamps set afloat, the fleet dressed, bonfires on both shores of the Horn, answering each other like domesticated beacons, and the Marmara villas burning lights down the whole coast, so that sea and city and islands become one scattered constellation, and sailors coming up the strait at night on such a feast have wept without knowing why, and put it in letters and been believed. Tomorrow is no feast. Tomorrow is a working Tuesday of the world's most working city. But the gold is all there in its cupboards, the banners rolled, the organs sheeted, the candle stores full, the acclamations folded away in the factions' memories, the whole apparatus of joy stored against the calendar exactly as the grain is stored against siege. A city, the watchman would tell you, must bank its gladness too. This one's vaults are full, and now the wheel turns under your hand. The deepest dark is past, the night begins to empty itself into morning, and the first to move, as everywhere on earth, are the boats and the bread. Down at the water gates of the Horn, the fishermen are waking, lanterns bobbing down the stairs, low voices, the knock of oars being shipped. The chain stays up till full light, but the small craft slip out through the guarded postern passages at the chain's shore ends, licensed and known, and spread out onto the black-silver water of the strait where the tunny run. Their torches, some fish are called to the light, begin to star the dark water one by one, till the Bosphorus looks from the walls like a second sky fallen between the continents, each star a boat, each boat a family's breakfast and rent. In the lanes, the bakery grates now glow openly, and the first loaves are coming out. The smell has annexed whole quarters, and the night's last watchmen and the day's first porters meet at the grates in the fraternity of the in-between hour, warming hands, trading the small change of the shift. Quiet night, rain coming maybe, by the smell. The Green's new driver is nothing special, whatever the Greens say. The water sellers rattle down to the fountains. The mule trains of the market gardeners come in through the opening land gates, with the dew still on the cabbages, drivers asleep on their feet beside beasts who know the way. And then, rolling across the rooftops from 100 courtyards, wave answering wave, the sound the whole night has been braided on, the semantron, calling matins the dawn office. In the monasteries the choirs are already standing. In the sleepless house the river of psalms simply swells a little, the night relay handing over to the morning without a seam, as always, as ever. The verger of Hagia Sophia unlocks the bronze doors. The sacristan's lamps, tended all night, are joined by the first grey light through the 40 windows, gold waking up the vaults. The first worshippers of the day, fishwives, senators, insomniacs, the odd emperor slip in to stand in the vastness while the choir's voices open the morning. On the seawall the watch changes. The old soldier of the Pharaoh's platform banks his brazier, reports the mountain dark peace, one more night of it, and goes down the tower stairs to bread and bed. The chain winches groan, the great links sag and sink, the harbour opens its hand. Along the ramparts the night watch files off as the day watch files on, passing at the tower doors with the nod of men who share a single unending duty divided only by the sun. The city is not awake yet, but it is no longer asleep. It is in the shallows now, rising slowly, the way a sleeper rises through the last easy dreams, and you may leave it there, mid-rising, safe, and go home ahead of the light. Your room is waiting above the Horn. The lamp is still burning, climb the stair softly. The household is still down in the deep of sleep. The grandmother will not wake the fire for half an hour yet, and come into your room under the roof tiles, where the small bed and the small window and the small lamp have kept your absence all night. Lie down. The bed is narrow and right. Through the window, open a hand's breadth on the mild autumn night, comes the last of the dark and the first of the morning, mixed salt off the horn, wood smoke starting somewhere, bread certainly, and the cool mineral breath of the sleeping streets. The icon lamp on its shelf has burned all night, as it burns every night, the bead of flame swimming in its oil, the small gold light on the faces of the guardians. Every night of your life it has been the last thing seen. Tonight let it do its oldest work. Watch the flame not brightly burning, just faithfully, and let the night you have walked arrange itself around it, lamp by lamp, watch by watch. The sentries are on the wall, leaning on 6 centuries of stone. The chain is down now, but the towers watch the water. The beacon mountain across the sea is dark, and the darkness means peace. The Eparch's men are walking the porticoes. The physician is on his ward. The fishermen are on the silver strait. The bakers are floured to the elbows in the morning's bread. And across the rooftops in the house of the sleepless, the psalms are flowing still, the night choir handing to the day choir, seamless, unbroken, the song that does not stop, so that no hour, including this one, including yours, goes unaccompanied. Someone is awake, everywhere, on your behalf. That has been the whole story of this night, of every night, in every city, on every sea. The watch is kept. It was never yours to keep. Listen one last time, wood on wood, far off, gentle as a heartbeat through a wall, the semantron, calling the city's prayers awake, so that everything else may finish its sleep. The rhythm rises, gallops softly, falls. Another courtyard answers it, farther, another farther still, and the sound goes out over the domes and the harbors and the walls, over the boats on the bright water and the letters waiting for the morning ships. Softer and softer, the whole guarded world knocking itself gently to rest. The lamp holds its small gold. The city holds its long peace. Sleep now.